Gentlemen, my black brothers, this is for you. The black man's stance will make you salute. His stroll will make you stop to look. His shoulders have a slow, methodical rhythm that allows his waist to stay in control. His rear flank, y'all, it marches to an unheard cadence that gives him soul. His head is straightforward, but if he looks you in the eye, look away, quickly look away as he lifts his rib cage and the diaphragm, he takes in the diaphragm to let you know he's getting ready to blow you away as that six-pack expands out and in and out and makes you want to scream and shoot! Put a suit and tie on that man's body and let that black man walk with a stride filled with confidence, self-assurance, pride, and a knowing that his intelligence is getting ready to be exhibited as soon as he opens his mouth. Let that black man walk. Now you see, as I walk down the street with the tall, strong, muscular, astute black brother, I watch others' reaction to him. You see, the men, they were giving him the silent pound, and the women, they just wished that he was with them, and I just smiled. Let that black man walk. The looks all have a special meaning, whether it's to walk towards you and to whisk you away, or the look that says, nothing can get in my way, for I am strong, and today is the day that I show my power as I walk through the gates. Let that black man walk. Now, I have to tell you a little story. During slavery times, when hangings were more common, the legs were dismembered to ensure that the man could not walk up out of the grave. Fear of the black man's walk is so unfounded, but it is certainly something to see. The next time the opportunity prevails, take time to look at that black man walk. Say it with me, y'all. Let that black man walk with his pants up. Let that black man walk with no drawers showing, y'all. Let that black man walk with some pride. Let that black man walk.
Welcome to this episode of Philly on the Rise. As you know, I'm your host, Michael W. Pleasant. This week, Philly on the Rise finds us in our downtown studios. We're actually joined by a very special person indeed. Most of you in the poetry, spoken word community, you know this young lady. But we're now going to introduce her to the rest of Philadelphia, and because we're on the World Wide Web, to the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the Axiom.
Hello.
How are you, Axiom?
I'm wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us on Philly on the
Thank you for
Rise.
having me.
You know, that poem, that signature piece, Let That Black Man Walk.
Yes.
How's that been received?
Very well, everywhere, anytime.
Okay.
No matter what audience I have.
Okay.
But I like to do it when there are a lot of black men in the audience.
Yeah.
Because that way they can hear it, they can receive it, and understand that I'm not bashing them. Because many times when the audience is full of men, I will actually ask them to stand.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of them are hesitant.
Yeah.
Because they're not really sure what I'm about to do.
Okay.
And I will actually go to them. I said, I'm not going to hurt you, baby. Come on, get up and stand up for me.
What I love about the poem is that it helps to instill a sense of pride in us as black men. That's one of the really things I love about it.
Yes.
You recently authored this book. It's an autobiography about your life. The Axiom, A Blade of Grace.
Yes.
How was the process, the journey in writing this autobiography about yourself?
Well, the one thing that the Bible tells you is that the truth will set you free. And writing this book caused me to really reflect on my life and various changes I've been through, various things I've gotten myself into and couldn't figure out how I was going to get myself out of.
Yeah.
And just life. I had to dig into my ancestry.
Okay.
I had to remember some of the historical aspects of life that I had grown up in.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael and the
Yeah.
Panthers and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that I lived through that era
Okay.
of the civil rights era.
You know, what's really interesting about the book is that each chapter begins with a quote, if you will. So there's a wonderful quote from Bob Bowen
Yes.
about youth.
Yes.
Let's talk about that chapter. a little
Yes.
bit.
Well, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is maybe read a little bit about this.
Okay.
Bob Bowen says, "We are only young once. That's all society can stand." Can you imagine that? You never even think about that. But this section here is called Teenage Life, and it's just a little excerpt that talks about me and my grandmother's interaction.
Oh, okay. Now, was Grandma kind of one of those old school grandmas from the South?
Yes, Lord.
Okay.
She's from Oconee County, Georgia.
Okay.
She did not play. But at 13, I thought I had arrived until Grandma Luella set me straight. "Go upstairs and clean that bathroom," my grandma was telling me. My response was dangerous. I walked up the first 3 steps in my mother's home, turned around, faced my grandmother, put my hands on my hip, rolled my neck, and spouted, "I don't see why I got to go clean up the bathroom. They ain't gonna do nothing but mess it up."
You said this to your grandma?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What happened next?
"Mess it up" was hardly out of my mouth before the long arms of Luella had grabbed me by my collar, forced me to miss the bottom steps which I had just walked up, threw me in a chair, and commenced to giving me a piece of her mind with the assistance of a broomstick.
Okay.
I began fighting for my life, for I had already lost my mind, so I had to save the rest of me.
Now, I know you mentioned that not only would she grab a broomstick, but she would also grab anything that she could kind of get her hands on.
Anything she could get her hands on.
Okay.
Mhm.
I know you also have a chapter, you have a wonderful quote from Marcus Garvey.
Oh, yes. What
Marcus
page is that?
Garvey.
That's on 39, I think.
Yeah, one of our leaders, forefathers.
Yes, yes.
What inspired you to put Marcus Garvey in that quote in your book?
Well, it wasn't so much about putting him in the book or even about him
Okay.
so much.
Yeah.
It was what he was saying.
Okay.
Because he says the black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a people have been tormented and have tormented ourselves
Yes.
about the shades of our skin.
Okay.
And we are, I believe it's 65 different shades of blackness.
Yes, all beautiful.
Yes, all beautiful.
Yes.
So, and I like that because there's a little section here where I believed as a child that I was ugly.
Now, was that from the media and the images you saw on TV? Was it from your other siblings, family members, people at school?
No, I was a kid. I was less than 10 years old.
Okay.
And I had already developed this phobia about my looks. I thought that my mother was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so people would say, "Oh, Sarah, that child looked just like you." Well, I would get insulted because I felt like they were saying that my mother was ugly because I believed I was ugly.
Now, how did that shift change when you started to realize that you were in fact beautiful?
It changed when my dad, I was 16 years old, and I was down in Virginia because my parents were divorced, so we would go down to Virginia for visitations in the summertime. And we would go to Fort Belvoir because he was a military man.
Okay.
And they would have the military parties on the base. So we went down there and we celebrated my birthday, my 16th birthday.
Yeah.
And we were dancing, he and I. He loved to dance.
Okay.
And he said to me, "Victoria, you are beautiful. Stay that way."
Yes.
And when he said that, I said, Daddy said I'm beautiful.
Okay.
So maybe I'm not as ugly as I think.
Yeah. Wow. You've been through quite a few challenges in life, like most of us. And I know there's a chapter, you have a quote from Helen Keller.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so let's get to that quote next.
Well, Helen Keller,
yeah, kind of what that
she, let's see, let me go to that page. It's 145, I think. Let's hope so. Here we are.
Yeah, Helen Keller.
what we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. And during this time, in 1992 in particular, my mother became suddenly ill. And I was very close to my mom, even though when you read the book, you'll say, boy, her mother was something else. I think she couldn't stand her mother. But when I became an adult, I became very close to my mom.
Okay.
And I could relate to her more. I didn't always agree with her because she was out there in outer space and I was back down here on Earth. So we clashed a lot of times.
Well, that typically happens in those teenage
Well, I was
years.
an adult.
Oh, you were an adult and you were
clashing. We were clashing. But we always talked every day, at least 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And on this particular evening, I called her, and we had called each other several times, and it was probably around 7 o'clock in the evening, and I said to her, look, I have a meeting to go to. I'm going to call you when I get out the meeting. When I came out of the meeting and called her, she didn't sound right.
Okay.
And I asked her what was wrong, and she could just about get out the word pain.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, and I asked her if one of our neighbors had a key to the house. I wanted to get somebody to her as quickly as possible. And so they didn't have a key, so I said, well, look, I'm going to call you back in a few minutes. I called my sister praying that she would be home, because she was never home. And that night she was. And at the time she lived at 53rd and Chestnut, and my mom lived at 50th and Pine. I called her. I said, look, I need you to get to Mom as quickly as possible. Something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong. When you get there, get her medical card.
Okay.
And then call the doctor and find out what they want to do.
Yeah.
So my sister, I don't even know how she got there as quickly as she did.
And what did she find out? What was the end result?
She found out that my mom was like bent over in pain.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out that my mom, she had a rheumatoid arthritis since she was 13.
Okay. Sure.
So she had taken aspirins all her life. Well, that aspirin and the tomato sauce that she had earlier burned a hole through the lining of her stomach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we winded up having to take care of her and do different things like that for her.
Back to health a little
right.
bit. Yeah.
And we tried as best we could, but she had so many things going on at that point, congestive heart failure, which eventually took her life.
Okay. It's a wonderful read. It's your story, your life, your ups and downs, your tribulations, but there is an underlying theme in the book. So in your words, what is the underlying theme of A Blade of Grace?
The underlying theme is that this book is a testimony. It shares my ancestry, as I mentioned. It shares history that I went of my life. It shares the fact that I had a child and my child was given up for adoption. It shares the fact that I used to perform in operas with the community college singers, and then subsequently the Clayton White singers.
Okay.
And it shares the fact that I had many medical testimonies that could have knocked some people for a loop, but I had so many, and I documented them through here. But the whole thing in the nutshell is that even though we go through things in life, even though we get in messes, and we need somebody to help us get out of that mess,
out of the mess,
that we can be victorious at the end of
all of that. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful read. There's also a kind of a picture, tons of pictures that kind of chronicle. You had a chance to meet Alex Haley.
Oh yes.
How was that?
That was wonderful. I had just finished performing Carmen at the Academy of Music.
Oh, downtown.
Right downtown Philly.
Okay.
And we had gone to a restaurant. The whole choir had said, well, look, we're going to go and celebrate after the opera. We went to a restaurant, and he was sitting there.
Yeah.
And I said to my choir director, that's Alex Haley over there. And he said, yeah. So everybody was like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because they knew I used to take pictures all the time.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to go over and talk to him. So I went over, I said, good evening, Mr. Haley, how are you?
Yeah.
And so he said, hello, how are you? And I said, would you have happened to have just seen the opera Carmen?
Yeah.
And he said, as a matter of fact, I did. How did you know that?
Okay.
I was on the stage. You were watching me. So I said, listen, I have my camera. Would you mind terribly if I took your picture? And he said, oh, no, not a problem. And so I took his picture. And then I said, can you autograph my program?
Okay.
And he autographed it, and that's in the book, too.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. The great Cecil B. Moore, you had a chance to meet him and take a picture?
Yes, the famous cigar man. And you know, it's funny, I went down to Baltimore to the Black Wax Museum.
Okay.
And they had a wax figure of Mr. Cecil B. Moore.
Yes.
I started fussing. Where's his cigarette? There's no cigarette. This cannot be Mr. Cecil B. Moore without his cigar, rather.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very funny. So, did they do anything about that?
They just looked at me like I was crazy.
Okay.
But the Philadelphians that were among us were saying they had to do something like that.
Yeah, well, we need to get a petition started, or we need to make some phone calls or something. Get that wax.
Get that wax cigar in his hand.
I know that you are heavy on the poetry scene here in Philadelphia. So you've done tons of gigs, you've got a lot of books, you've got some CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have, let's see, let me pull it out of here so you can see.
Okay.
The first one, which is very popular, is, what's it called?
Let That Black Man Walk.
That's right.
Well, there you go. Okay.
All right. And the latest one is Run Between the Raindrops.
Run Between the Raindrops. And these can be found on your...
Well, you can purchase them directly from me. I don't have them online.
Okay. Online, you have an online presence.
Yes, I have an online presence because my books are published through a publishing house called Lulu.com, Lulu.com. And if you go to Lulu.com and go to their drop-down search menu, you can search by author. Look up Victoria Huggins Purifoy. That's spelled P as in Paul, E-U-R-I, F as in Frank, O-Y. If you type in my name, what will happen is my store will come up. My storefront will come up.
You've got a storefront?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It shows all my books.
Okay. So this is one of the books. You've got a book coming out in the fall.
Yes.
Man, let us know about that a little bit.
The book coming out in the fall is Run Between the Raindrops.
Okay.
It will not be as large as this because this is a draft copy.
Yeah.
But it will look like this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And this is a book of
poetry, prose, and parodies.
Understood. So obviously poetry is your life. You've been writing ever since you were 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So as a poet, I often wonder, inspiration comes from where? Is it just walking down the street?
Yes.
Do you just wake up in the morning and you get inspiration?
Well, it walks down the street, it talks in your ear, you hear other people's conversations. There can be history in the making on television, like the Trayvon Martin situation. Many poets wrote about that. And when the Sullenberg, the pilot who saved 155 passengers.
Sure.
I mean, anything, you could write about anything. I am Christian, and I do have many Christian poems, or Christ-like poems, I'd rather say. And I have a book even called God's Calling.
Okay.
That has many inspirational poems in that.
Sure. So most of your work, would you consider it inspirational? Would you consider it religious, Christian? Like, how do we define the Axiom?
You can't define me.
I can't put her in a box, right?
No,
Don't
box me in. Because I'm kind of all over the place with it. I am a Christian individual, and I do write Christian inspirational poetry, but my poetry is just all over the place.
Okay.
It really is. I can't put it in any one particular category. I came up with Stokely Carmichael, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Cecil B. Moore, and Soul on Ice. I came up with God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, Sunday school, pride for youth, preparing for Christian leadership, spiritual feedings, blessings aplenty. I came up with James Brown and Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Temptations, the Iceman, y'all, Jerry Butler, the Last Poets, the Supremes, the Unifics, Lena Horne, and Sly and the Family Stone. I came up with civil rights changes and civil rights marches and civil rights banners and civil rights mentors and civil rights going by. I came up with Sunday school teachers and a pastor who taught my life exists with God walking ahead of me, the Son carrying me, and the Holy Spirit keeping me strong. I came up with music that is unforgettable. That's what you are. That made me say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Saying, can I have a talk with you? As I heard it through the grapevine and sang, baby, baby, where did our love go? Ooh, don't you want me? Don't you want me no more? Then I realized that I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah. I came up with the barking attack dogs and the fire hoses and the clubbings and the bombings and the burning down of 52nd Street and the civics group called Citizens for Progress and the gangbangers, be they girls or be they boys, and the neighborhood color guards. And you see, the coast was the best. And then Gil Scott Heron's The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. I came up with Mahalia Jackson with One of These Mornings and Shirley Caesars and No Charge and the Hawkins, I'm going up yonder, and the the Ward sisters and Yolanda Adams and Vicki Winans. And I had a talk with an old friend. I came up with a conscience, a purpose, a direction, and as I came up, there was the realization that the church, the music, the civic lessons, and the experience of the civil rights era helped me to grow. I came up with the political rally call, Power to the People, Power to the People, Power to the People.
Awesome, awesome. The Axiom. The Axiom. Thank you so much for blessing our TV program with your wisdom and knowledge.
Can I tell folks what the axiom means?
Oh, sure. Let's go right ahead.
The axiom means truth.
All right. One simple word. The axiom means truth.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of Philly on the Rise. You know where to find this powerful young lady, the Axiom. She's doing some great and wonderful things in our city. And please go to her website, support her, and we'll see you soon.